So this video is on combinations of things that are going to happen with your sine and your cosine waves. So we're going to do a little bit of both. Hopefully I can at least give you 2 examples of each. Alright, we'll start with that anyway. So the first one we're going to start with is a cosine. And we just want to list as much as we can right now as far as what kind of changes are taking place to a regular cosine function. So our period typically is 2 pi, but we do have a c value of pi. So that does change our period to 2, which if we take that 2 and split it into 4 pieces, will make our intervals 1/2. An amplitude would be listed right in front of cosine, and there's not one, so it's an understood 1. And then because this is separated and added or subtracted to this function, that is a vertical shift up 2 because it's a positive 2. There's no reflection, okay, and there's no horizontal. All right, so let's map what we have, and then we'll look at the range, okay? If we had a horizontal movement, we want to move that first because we need to get it in the right place. But let's take our intervals, all right? Each interval is a 1/2 apart. So each tick mark, we're going to add a 1/2. Okay? I went up 2. Now for me, I like to draw the original with dots. I just like to have it there most of the time before I shift up or down because I get lost. So I just kind of help myself. So we've taken care of the amplitude and the new period. Now we want to go up 2. So each mark is going to go up 2. And then we've graphed our function. All right, now we can tell what is our range. Our lowest point is here at 1, and our highest point is at 3. So that's our range. Okay, now that was a pretty simple one. Let's try another one. Here's a sine one. It's got a little bit more going on, so we'll work on it. Period is typically 2 pi, but we have a c value of 1/3. Okay, so we're going to divide by that c, which means we're going to keep change and flip and give us a new period of 6 pi. Now we're going to take 6 pi and divide it into 4 sections, and we'll reduce that to 3 pi over 2. So each tick mark is 3 pi over 2 apart from each other. Okay, let's see what else we have. We do have an amplitude difference, and that's at 2. Remember, amplitude's right in front of the function. And then we have this horizontal shift of up 4. Okay, nothing else is in the parentheses, so we didn't have a horizontal, and there was no negative in front of the function, so we didn't have a reflection. All right, so let's see what we want to do. We want to name our intervals first. So we're going to start at 0. Each mark is 3 pi over 2 apart. And another 3 pi over 2 is 6 over 2, which is 3 pi. And then 9 pi over 2. And another 3 pi over 2 is 12 pi over 2, which is 6 pi. Okay? We have our intervals. I'm again going to do my original. Now this is a sine, and sine starts at 0, right? So here is my sine wave, and I've got to go up 4. So every mark is going to move up 4. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. This mark's going to go up 4. Every single mark, I might have those too close together, is going to go up 4. Let's see, this one would be here, and then we go back. All right, there's my wave. New period of 6 pi, which made our intervals different, and then we shifted it up. Okay? All right, let's see what else we got. Here's another sine one. Let's try it. All right, period change. So 2 pi divided by that c gives us a period of pi. So each mark is going to be pi over 4 apart. We do have an amplitude change of 3. I don't remember if I had an amplitude change last time. Let's go back. We did have an amplitude change of 2. So we should have stretched that a little bit further. It should have gone up. And this would have been lower. So we would have had a wider graph. We didn't talk about its range, so that would have put us at 2 to 6, right? As far as our range was concerned. So if you've got an amplitude, you got to put it in there, okay? So let's go back to the one we're on. We do have an amplitude change of 3. All right, and then we have a minus 2 here. So it's vertical, but this time we're going down 2. Okay, no reflection because the minus would have had to been here for a reflection. All right, so basic one first. Pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4. All right, we have an amplitude of 3. All right, so this is sine. We start at 0. Amplitude of 3, that means we're going to stretch it to 3 instead of just 1. So here's the basic one with the amplitude change. So we took care of all that. Now we got to just take everything and shift it down 2. So every point goes down 2. Well, I didn't quite hit that thing, did I? Let's try to hit the dots. Okay, so every point just went down 2 measures. All right? So make sure you're getting the amplitude in there and changing it. Okay? And then I would do the shifting down and up last. And then maybe even after that, if you had a reflection, I would do that very last. Okay? So let's do one with a horizontal shift in it. Let's see if we can find you one. Cosine. With a horizontal shift. Let's just make one of these cosine. Okay? We'll do this one. Make it cosine. Alright, let's see what we're going to have here. Okay? So our period is 2 pi, but we have a C value of 1/2. So keep changing flip, we get 4 pi. If we make that 4 intervals or divide it into 4 intervals, every mark is a pi away. Okay? Now, we do have an amplitude change. It's at 2. We do have a vertical shift. We had a minus 2 back here, so that's down 2. All right? And we have a horizontal because that's our parentheses. So if we take this parentheses and put it equal to 0, we have a shift to the right. It's going to be positive pi over 6. Okay? Now, in front of the function is a negative, so we have a reflection. So we got everything going on in this problem that we could possibly have. All right? So let's just process how we need to do this. First, horizontal movement needs to be done so that you can get your markings correct. Okay? So since we are going to go to the right pi over 4 of 6, that's going to be our first mark because we normally start at 0. So our first mark is going to be our horizontal movement, however how far we're supposed to. So this is right pi over 6. All right, we are going to add the interval to it. Okay, now our interval is pi. That is 6 over 6 pi. So my next mark is going to be 7 pi over 6. If I add another 6 over 6 pi, I get 13 pi over 6. If I add another 6 over 6 pi, I get 19 pi 6 over 6. And we're going to have one more mark, so we got to have 5 marks in 4 spaces. If I add another 6 pi over 6, then I get 25 pi. 24 pi over 6, right? So 24 pi over 6, this reduces, right? Reduces to 3 pi. So did I add that right? 6, oh no, that would be 25 over pi. 25 pi over 6, sorry. Counted, I was one off. All right, so we've gotten our markings, our period and intervals taken care of, and we shifted to the right. So our first mark is going to be along this pi over 6, not at 0 on the axis. So now, we got an amplitude, so we're going to do our first markings with the amplitude. Remember, cosine starts at the high mark, so an amplitude of 2 would make it come up here to 2. Now, I'm just going to put my basic with this new shift to the right and my new amplitude of 2, okay? So I took care of all 4 of those things right there. Now I'm going to go down 2, okay? So every mark has to go down 2. Okay, so here's everything moved down 2. Just shifted everything down 2, every mark. All right, so I took care of that. Now the last thing I'm going to do is reflect. Now remember, when you reflect, your high is now your low, and your low is now your high. Okay, that's all that happens in reflection. Your midpoints don't change. They stay right where they're at. So this is our graph, the purple one. This is it being shifted to the right pi over 6 with a new period. Is shifting, it has an amplitude of 2, so in between the points we have a space of 2 units vertically, and it has been shifted down 2 and reflected. Okay, so you had everything in this equation. Now our range, the low end is -4 and the high end is 0. Okay? All right, I don't know if I'm going to get another one in, but we're going to try it. We'll start it, and then if we run out of time, we will. All right, so let's look. Period is 2 pi with a C value of 2. So we have pi. We have an amplitude of 3. That makes our intervals pi over 4 since we have a new period. We have a vertical shift down 2. And we have a horizontal shift. So over here I'm going to go 2x minus pi over 2 equals 0. And I'm going to solve for x. So we move the pi over 2, make it positive, and we multiply by 1/2 to get rid of that 2. So we shifted to the right pi over 4. Okay? That's good because our intervals are pi over 4, so they kind of match. All right, so let's go to the right pi over 4. That's our first mark. Our second mark's 2 pi over 4, which is 1/2. 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, and 5 pi over 4. Remember, we need 5 marks and 4 spaces. All right, so we did that, our new period and our intervals. This is a sine wave, okay? Our sine wave here has an amplitude of 3. So we're going to start this with an amplitude of 3. Here's our sine wave. Okay, we have to go down 2. So we're going to shift everything down 2, every mark. Okay, and we didn't have a reflection. This is our new graph. That makes our range -5 to 1.